All right, so my name is Claudia. I'm a co-owner of Bricks Wine Shop with Kerry Wróblewski. And as you probably know, we have 2 stores in Boston and 1 on Nantucket. And the same kind of background, orange wall. It's Emma. She's our manager in Financial District. And she actually physically is in the store in Financial District where I'm kind of doing a trick. I took a picture and this is my wallpaper. Since the store is extremely busy, they're downstairs and I'm upstairs. So today, our first this year tasting will focus on females. I think partially is because that's normally with our private tastings, the most requested one. And then also is because we are female winemakers, so we thought we are female owners, so we thought we were going to kick it off with the female winemakers. It's a little bit different angle this time, opposed to kind of going across the world with different female winemakers or owners. We are concentrating on Italy, where it's really amazing that the firstborn with all these very prominent families are women. And they really now changing the landscape in Italy. Probably one of the most famous family, and the woman that it's taking over is Gaia from Gaia. I know it's repetitive name, but that's exactly her name. And unfortunately, in this particular tasting, won't be tasting any Gaia since the wine starts with $100 and going up. But if we ever want to set up a luxury tasting, we'll be happy to do that. Emma will be mostly talking about wines, and I would just introduce a wine and a cheese. And on purpose, we didn't label the cheeses because I'm curious if you can figure it out. So the first wine we're gonna try is the Nino Franco Prosecco, and we paired it with the Ribbiola. So both actually are from Italy. Would you know which cheese that is?
That one.
I'm gonna suggest
So which of the cheeses that,
Hold
4
it up.
cheeses that you have? No?
Hold it up.
No?
Nope. Next guess.
Definitely not.
The
All right, we have 1 left. It's the white. Yes, bravo.
soft
Yes.
one. Okay.
I can't lift it, it's too running.
Okay.
So I have to admit that
That's the French one.
in general, goat's milk cheeses are my favorites. And the style of cheese that is my favorite is Ribbiola. Ribbiola is mostly made in Italy, and it could be a single milk, could be different 2 milks or 3 milks. This particular one, it's a due latte, which means 2 different milks. And this one has a cow and sheep. We pairing it with Prosecco because all the creaming cheeses, I think that whoever been to the tasting last year, we did the sparkling, it was champagne from Roder, and we did with the Brillat Savarin. So that's also a very creamy triple cream cheese. This is definitely not triple cream, it's not that rich, but it's very velvety and very mushroomy, and that really pairs fantastically with the bubbles. So what do you think?
Very nice.
It's very versatile cheese, and that's probably the least unique from the Ribbiolas. Some of you I recognize, you shop at the store, so you probably remember all these amazing Ribbiolas wrapped in the cabbage leaves, in leek leaves, in chestnut leaves, you name it. So all of these, usually round or square, are Ribbiolas. So now moving to the wine, I'll have Emma take over.
So the wine that we're pairing with it is a Prosecco, like Claudia mentioned, from one of the original Prosecco producers. So Prosecco comes from northern Italy in the Veneto region. So we're not that far outside of Venice, in a very specific area called Valdobbiadene. There are a lot of Prosecco producers now, and so you're starting to see a distinction between those that sort of grow fruit and make it in a similar style in a similar area, and those that make true Prosecco, and that's when you're going to see the Valdobbiadene on the label. Prosecco is always made from a grape called Glera. It's indigenous to this part of the world, and the Franco family does it as one of the best. So this is high altitude Prosecco, really fresh and bright and very almost champagne-like, even though it's made in a different style. So this family has been making wine in this region since 1919. It's now in its almost 4th generation. So it went from Antonio to Nino, whose wine you're drinking today. Primo is the current owner, and his daughter Sylvia is studying under him and is primed to take over next. So similar to what Claudia had mentioned earlier, she is the 1st generation of female. So she is going to take over all the operations. And this is consistently one of our favorites time and time again. And I agree with Claudia. I think it pairs really well with the creamier style cheeses. It has that high acid and that really, really nice bubble structure to help sort of cleanse your palate in between the bites.
Question.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
So Prosecco has gotten really, really popular in the past few years. And just as there are differences with champagne and sparkling wine, how can we distinguish between what's really fine Prosecco and what's, are there drinks that are labeled as Prosecco that are not really Prosecco?
Yeah.
So one of the ways that you're going to be able to decipher this is a really true Prosecco, we will have designation on it. So we will have letters DOCG.
Right.
And that's how you're going to know.
You can see it.
Again, if you shop in a store like Brix or like Brix, people will know that. And, you know, unless you're having a large party and you're mixing with, you know, a lot of orange juice or any other mixers, you really do not want to have those not DOCG Prosecco. There is a significant difference, in my opinion. Even with the ones that are DOCG, I think the producer, like everywhere else, matters.
Absolutely.
And Nino Franco might be, you know, $1 or $2 more expensive, but you can literally drink it by itself. And that's why we're presenting it by itself, because it's really done in a method of champoise, and the bubbles are tight and it's delicious, where a lot of those inexpensive Proseccos are very sweet. They're not balanced. Like, I actually, you know, don't want to drink it. I personally rather drink water. Now, again, if you have a really large party and it's still a quality producer, but doing a Prosecco that maybe grapes come from all over, then I think it's totally fine, because you're mixing it. It's like, you know, a lot of people do mimosa with champagne. Sure, if you have all the money in the world, yes. But if your ratio of orange juice to sparkling, it's, let's say, 50-50, it's kind of waste of money to spending $60 on a bottle of champagne to mix it with orange juice.
Good.
Where something like this, you can enjoy it by itself. But if you want a quality mixer, I mean, a quality cocktail, it doesn't break a bank. And we will tell you the prices after. We just don't want to influence.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sounds good?
Yeah.
And then just one more comment.
So the cheaper mass marketed ones tend to be all different types of grapes, white grapes, or they could be.
So in order to have Prosecco on the label, it has to be at least 70% Glera, the grape that I was talking about before. The true Prosecco producers make it from 100% Glera. That's historically how it should be made. Last time Primo Franco was with us, he was talking about the dividing line on the hills in Valdobbiadene. And the sweetness that Claudia is talking about, those grapes are grown closer to the valley floor. So they have saturated sunlight and not a lot of cool breezes. So it really concentrates the fruits and makes it very, very sweet. Whereas the Nino Franco that you're enjoying this evening, the Rustico, that's grown higher up on the hillside.
Your
So
phone.
it has beautiful fruit, but it also has these really cool nights and nice breezes to help sort of tighten that up. And that's where you're getting more elegance and finesse with the wine.
And then since we are talking about women, I just want to say that, you know, Sylvia, before, even though her father was hoping that she's going to take over, she actually decided to first study interior design, and she was in that business in Milano. And then not till later that she missed being outdoors and understood the family business. And even though I believe she is a CEO, it's really her father that is still in charge.
Mhm.
Any other questions about this particular wine or the area? Okay, so moving on. Okay, this one should be a easy cheese to choose. It's called Time Out.
I think. Hold it up.
Because it has time in it.
Yes,
Time within age.
the Newtons found it.
We agree.
So the cheese that you have, it's a goat cheese with little pieces of thyme.
Mhm.
And then the pairing is a Ligurian Pigato, which is a grape varietal. And what's interesting is that maybe it's not a perfect pairing. I think the perfect pairing would be a rosé, but rosé will be our next theme, rosé wines. But what's really interesting about this is how versatile the Pigato is. You can sip it by itself. It's absolutely amazing with all the seafood. It comes from Liguria, so naturally everything there is right from the ocean. And I thought to experiment and see with the fresh thyme, because goat cheese would not naturally go with it. I really didn't know, so I experimented it, and I think it's interesting. So, but it would not necessarily be a natural pairing. And I also wanted to have one cheese that would be purely goat, and especially from this particular farm in Vermont, which started in 1987. And when they started, they actually were having no running water and no electricity. And they started with 3 goats or 3 sheep and 1 goat. Right now, they have goats and sheep and cows, and their cheeses are just stunning. So maybe Emma, would you want to talk about the wine?
Yeah, absolutely. So Punta Crena is in an area of Italy called Liguria. So we're a little bit north of Genova, right on the coast. And like Claudia said, what grows together goes together. So these are cliffside vineyards basically falling into the ocean. The Ruffino family has been working this land for over 500 years. There's now currently 4 siblings that run it. 2 of them are women. Anna runs the logistics and Nicola sort of helps in the vineyard site, but it was really their mother that paved the way and went directly, instead of going to distributors within Italy, she went directly to an importer and has had a long-standing relationship with Kermit Lynch, which is the reason why we all get to enjoy this wine together. So like Claudia said, Pagato is the grape varietal. It's really related to another grape that people are more familiar with called Vermentino. The difference being that the Pagato grape, when it's ripe, it's speckled, like has little polka dots all over it. And the name Pagato comes from the Italian word piggy, which means speckled. We absolutely love this wine. We think it's like a perfect spring, early summer, like she mentioned, great to enjoy on its own. It also pairs really well with salads and vegetables and just sort of lighter, like crudité, summer fare, a nice cheese board, any of those things.
Emma,
Yes.
why is the bottle shaped like that? It's a little different than.
So they chose to bottle in a more Alsatian style bottle. That's not necessarily it's not a hallmark of this particular region or vineyard. It's just a stylistic choice, but you'll find a lot of Vermentinos from Liguria are in a similar shape bottle.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Most welcome. So this is like if you pick up your oysters from Pacamo, this would be like absolutely fantastic with it, because you notice how there's a lot of like sea salt. Like if you really concentrate your palate, like think about it, just think about sea salt. This definitely, this wine, you can tell that was growing close to the ocean.
It seems much sharper than a Riesling type. It's
Definitely.
different. It's very different.
Yes, it's in a similar shape bottle to what you'd find a Riesling in, but it's far less sweet. The skin is very,
I like it.
yeah, it's delicious. We love introducing people to this wine.
And again, the ideal pairing would really just be seafood, fresh seafood, or anything just on a grill, because the balance of fruit and acidity is just perfect. And then like the oysters having so much brine, and some people actually don't like it because they come too salty. This would be a perfect match because there is some saltiness from the air in the wine.
Yeah. And when we're talking about food and wine pairing in general, the rules really are you either want them to match, so you want salty with salty, or you want them to be totally polar opposites of each other. So if you're enjoying something like a spicy dish, that's when you would want a Riesling, something with a little bit of residual sugar to sort of help balance those things out.
You cut out for 1 second when you were saying the similar ones. You
So
want
the
the salt with the
so-
salt, but the next sentence you just cut out a touch.
Otherwise, you want them to be different from each other. So the example that I was using is if you're eating something spicy, that's when you would want a sweeter style Riesling or a wine with residual sugar to help balance that.
Mhm.
Pictures confused.
Literally.
All right, so moving on. The next wine is
I can't
Vaira
drink that
Rosso. What's that?
I can't drink that fast. I know I'm tasting, but
Yes,
You
it's a
taste
tasting
now.
here.
Come back.
See, that's why you need to take an example from Rhonda McDonald. They have 4 different glasses, so they really prepared for a true tasting. And then when they taste through the wines, they probably will go back and it's like, I'm gonna drink this now. So next time. But you can always, pour a little bit and then pour a next one.
I see.
this white is really nice.
It's fantastic. And wait till you really taste it with fish. I'm doing this recipe with oysters, and it's very, very simple, but it's absolutely ridiculously good. So I'm gonna, if I get my ducks in a row, I'll do a recipe. So if you come by, hopefully for the next weekend, it's a very simple recipe with oysters that I just cannot get enough of. And then all it is just sauteing leeks and shallots, putting brown butter, and then on open oysters, putting this in and putting into the broiler. Baking it for 5 minutes. That's it.
Oh.
But you would not believe it, how amazing it is. Simple, and usually really good ingredients and simple are usually the best. So,
Not that you're marketing, but where do you
Excuse me?
think is the best place on the island to get fresh oysters?
where is that?
Where do you think is the best place on the island to get fresh oysters?
We usually have like customers that want to barter for wine, and they get their own oysters, so it's their own fish. But I'll find out from them, because I'm sure they sell some of their stuff to others. But the Pacoma oysters these years were like incredible. Like, as I said, every 3 days we have oysters. So I know Emma is jealous. I need to bring some, right?
Yes.
Next time around.
Foods.
So the next wine is from Vaira, and it's a daughter obviously, but it's a duo of female and her brother. And I think what we like about these wines in general, there are Barolo producers, but I think what we like about this wines in general, like if I have to use one sentence, is they over deliver for the money. Their Barolos are like in the 50s, like really, really high quality Barolo. And that Langaroso is under $20. I know I'm not supposed to talk about pricing right now, but this is really why we love it, because
Low battery.
it is from Piedmont, and it is, if you want to drink red, it's a perfect summer red with a lot of character for really short money. And I kind of paired it with a French cheese, because Nebbiolo grape is very similar in style to Pinot Noir grape, and especially a lighter expression of it. And Comté cheese, I think there is not one person that I met in my entire life that didn't like the Comté. Comté is essentially Gruyere, but it's from France, opposed to right across the border from Switzerland. And also Comté is the cheese that it's the largest production of any cheese in France. 64,000, that's a good one, kilograms or pounds, one or the other. It's delicious. It's the yellow little cheese, like very yellow with no truffles in it, square. Did you find it? You're eating it, excellent. So what do you think about it? Isn't it delicious? Almost like almond-like. It's great melted. It's great with like tomato and cheese sandwich on a great crusted bread. And it is fabulous with Pinot Noir or a lighter style Nebbiolo-like wines.
Claudia, these cheeses have been unbelievable. They're so delicious.
Great, I'm glad. All right, Emma, take it over.
So, like Claudia mentioned, the Vajra family is a Nebbiolo producer, Barolo producer in the Piemonte in northern Italy. So Barolo is made from 100% Nebbiolo, and to echo kind of what she mentioned already, we really love the Vajra wines because they do over deliver, but I also love that they're very relaxed styles of very prestigious regions. So if you're just sort of trying to get into the grape and understand what this area of Italy is all about, they're a really great producer to sort of like dip your toe in the pool with. So the Vajra Rosso is a blend predominantly of Nebbiolo, Barbera, and Dolcetto. So it's the three main grapes that are grown in the region. They also do add a little bit of Pinot Noir and Freisa, which is another grape that sort of has like a fresh, almost strawberry-like note to it. So it's considered a field blend. All of these grapes grow together in a couple different vineyard sites. And it's just a great sort of weeknight wine. Really wonderful with barbecue and a variety of different things. And it's great for the summer. You could even like throw it on an ice bucket and have like a nice sort of chilled glass if you'd like. So it's a family property. They've been in the Piemonte for several generations. The current generation is run by the siblings. So Francesca is the daughter. She works the US/international market selling, but when she's not doing that, she is learning how to make the wines from her father. So she's poised to take over whenever she's ready to settle down. She's in her early 30s, and she'll eventually move back to the Piemonte and stay there full time and be the winemaker for them. So we love her a lot.
We love it. And any type of wines like that, like Emma mentioned, even in the winter and fall, but especially in the spring and summer, you really want to put in a refrigerator for 10 minutes. You want a slight chill on it. The wine would actually benefit from it. And that goes with the Pinot Noirs as well. Do you have any questions? You like it? Everybody's on mute, so I don't know.
Nope. I was trying to hold back because I'm asking all the questions. However,
Don't hold back. That's not your nature, I can tell. Don't hold back.
could you
You are so right.
could you comment on this particular wine and even contrast it with the next one? I don't know. I'm always interested in the acidity of red wines and those that are less acidic. I tend to have a preference, you know, for a Brunello or really aged reds that don't have as much acidity, but that's not always true. Some of the younger reds or lighter reds have less acidity. I'm just interested, since you're both authorities on this.
You can start, I can add.
Yeah. So a lot of times acidity is confused with tannin, which are two different things. So tannin comes from like the thick skins of the grapes, and it's the texture that kind of coats your mouth and stays there. But the acidity has a lot to do with when the grapes were picked and then also where they're grown in the world. So if we're jumping out of Italy for a moment, and let's say we go to a region called Burgundy, for example. So those Pinot Noirs, it's a much cooler climate. So they're high acid, especially in their youth. And a lot of reasons for that are because they want the wines to age. So the wines in their youth need to be high acid so that they have longevity in your cellar and they sort of relax over time. So Brunello is a really great example of a wine that's not high acid, but if you were to have the next wine that we're gonna try, a Rosso di Montalcino, which is the same exact grape, grown in the same exact place, but they're younger vines and the grapes are picked a little bit earlier, you're gonna notice the acidity difference in those. It also has a lot to do with the quality of the producer. So generally speaking, the cheaper the wine, the higher the acid, the more unbalanced it will be, and that's all you're gonna taste. You're not necessarily gonna taste the fruit. The Pagotto that we all had, that's considered a high acid wine. So is the Prosecco. But because they're so well made and thought through from the moment the vines are planted into the ground until you have it in your glass, it's well balanced enough that the acid is not the predominant thing that you notice.
And you need acid,
Yeah.
because otherwise, whatever you're consuming for food, it would not withstand to it.
Right.
So
Especially
those wines, so acid is very, very important. The tannins is not as important from a flavor perspective than acid is. If you know, there will be plenty of wines that you start drinking. When we taste wines, for example, to buy, we would taste wine and the fruit will be so beautiful, and you taste, and then all of a sudden, in the end of the palate, there's no acidity. So we're almost not interested in those wines anymore because it's like half a wine. So acidity is extremely important, but like Emma said, like everything else in life, quality. And then again, that's why we like this wine, this producer, because the quality is there, but also it's very affordable within the matrix of wines that they make. So now we're going into Rosso di Montalcino, which kind of Emma already brushed on. So it's kind of entry level, both in the price, taste, body, aging, to the Brunello di Montalcino. And this one right here is very, very special to us. We visited, my business partner and I visited twice. And the reason it's so special is because the Donatella Colombini is the only winery in the whole Italy that's solely operated by women. And it's not because she's so emancipated. It's just about 20 some years ago, when she was looking for a new winemaker, she went to the Italian consortium, and she was looking at the list of people that are ready to become a winemaker. and she came across a female's name, which, 25 years ago, even in the United States, it was extremely male-dominated business, but definitely in Italy, which still continues. She came across the female, and let's just say she was Francesca. I said, oh, you have a Francesca here. Oh, wonderful. How is she? And the man goes like, nah, she's no good. Then she found another one. Let's say, I don't know, Stefania. Oh no, she's no good either. Then the third one and the last one she was inquiring about, and he said, oh, she's no good either. And so you only have 3 females and 9 of them are good. And he said, women cannot make good wine. We females are not good winemakers. Well, then Donatella says, I will take all 3 of them. And guess what? Not only the winemaking, but everything on her farming, the whole property, she only hires women since that day. Thank God she has a daughter, which Emma is going to talk about. And she's the next generation. And the only male in the whole property with probably like 30 some women is her husband. So I think that was worth showing, and her wines also are absolutely phenomenal. She's deeper in the Tuscany, and I personally think that more southern Tuscan wines are more intriguing and luxurious than, let's say, northern Tuscany. So I guess I'm very excited about it. I'm supposed to talk about the cheese. So the cheese that we're pairing with is the sheep's cheese. It's called Molterno di Tartufo, and it's made with truffles. And the only reason they can actually make this particular cheese with truffles all year round is because there is aging involved, and there's a lot of salt in the aging cheeses. So normally, like cream cheeses with truffles would only be made in the truffle seasons, where this one could be made year round. We absolutely love this cheese. It usually would be paired with Barolo, because from Piedmont, that's where most of the truffles come from. But I really want to introduce this cheese, and I think the Rosso di Montalcino can withstand it, even though the Brunello di Montalcino would be much better pairing.
So Rosso di Montalcino comes from Tuscany, like Claudia mentioned, the southern side in a village called Montalcino. It's absolutely beautiful. If none of you have been there, it's highly worth the trip. So Sangiovese is the grape here. It's also there are multiple different what they call clones of Sangiovese. So in order to be Brunello di Montalcino or Rosso di Montalcino, it has to be 100% Sangiovese Grosso. It is a particular clone that's indigenous to this particular area in Tuscany, and it grows so well in the soil that it's the only grape that's allowed to be used to make these wines. In order to be Brunello di Montalcino, the vines have to be a minimum of 30 years in age. So there's a lot of fruit that gets produced in between when they plant it and that 30-year mark, and that's where you find the Rosso. So for those that have enjoyed a Brunello before, you'll notice that it's really rich and deep and very expressive and intricate. And this Rosso is going to be a little bit lighter in style, a little bit higher acid, like what we were talking about before, but still be complicated and delicate. And the depth that you're finding from a Brunello has to do with the age of the vines and how deep those roots grow into the ground. So the deeper the roots grow, the more interesting the resulting wine is going to be. We really love the Rosso for a variety of different reasons, but Violante is definitely one of the reasons. She is Donatella Colombini's daughter. She is an absolute treasure. They are like a powerhouse. They're a total force, the two of them. And they just make absolutely beautiful wines. Violante is studying to be the winemaker and comes to the States whenever we can have her. And, you know, this is just a really like elegant expression of the grape that can be a great weeknight wine, but you can also pair it with a variety of different things off the grill. I really love it with like a smoky tuna steak or swordfish. It's really nice with that. Again, like we were saying, if you put it in the refrigerator for a few minutes, it's absolutely phenomenal and can definitely be enjoyed during the summertime. So does anybody have any questions about the Rosso?
I have a question. Have you visited all the 4 vineyards
Me
that
personally,
produce the wines that we're having?
personally, no. I've lived in Italy for 2 years. I lived in Florence, so I traveled a lot through Tuscany. I did a lot of winery tours, but I never went to Donatello Colombini, but I will eventually make it back.
When we can travel again, yes?
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
If we're allowed in the European Union again, that'll be nice. So, but, you know, studying wine is like anything. It's like if you love something and you're passionate about something, you want to absorb as much information as possible. So really sort of have to think about it from a whole different, like from a global perspective. So I think a lot about the climate. I think a lot about where these grapes grow in relation to each other. And when you think about that, the geography in conjunction with the climate, it really tells you a lot about the grapes that are in your glass. And sort of what I touched on earlier, which is the cooler climate, the higher acid, generally the lighter style the wines are going to be. If we're talking Napa, California, that's where you're getting those really big, bold Cabernets, but also big and bold Chardonnays. And there's delicate wines that are made there, but the reality is the sun is just too warm. So that's just how those wines are going to be expressed. So it's a lot of fun. And it's definitely great to try a variety of different things, open a group of different wines with different friends, and just sort of step outside of your comfort zone and talk to the ladies at the shop and say, you know, I really like this style of wine and I want to try something different, and just sort of allow them to like lead you in a different direction. And I guarantee you're going to discover something that maybe you have never heard of before or you thought you wouldn't like. Because we can help with that. We absolutely can.
But we are very lucky because we are very particular, and who we hire obviously are gems because we're particular, and people really wanted to visit us. So even if not everyone visited the vineyard, everyone that worked for us, because they've worked for us for a long time, they've met every single person that represents these wineries, and also many others. So I think that at least transports some of that feeling without being there.
Right. And wine is supposed to be relaxed and fun. There's this little bit of a stigma around it being very serious, and it's not. It's all about having a conversation and just wanting to enjoy something. I mean, you open a bottle of wine, you know it's going to be a good time, regardless of the circumstance. So it's a good way to approach everything in life, I think.
So a question about the cheese. Where is that particular Tartufo cheese from? This is amazing.
Isn't it really interesting? You know what's really good
amazing.
Too? It's from Sardinia.
Oh wow.
Yes. So it's very strong cheese if you think about it. Like, I personally cannot eat as much of that as a goat cheese, but everybody's different. But also what's really, really good is I use this cheese a lot shaved over pasta. So instead of doing the Parmigiano Reggiano, I'll do that, and it adds another layer because of the truffles. So all of this
That
is
is
available.
a great idea. I am so glad to hear that idea. We will be shaving this over pasta.
Great. We'll have more tips next time with other things as well. Yeah, it really is amazing, and very little goes a long way. Opposed to, like, it seems like with Parmesan, I would like add it just when I finish the pasta. Then you would add it after, you know, you starting eating, and then halfway in between, I put more. So I like the idea that I'm getting the same, but with less. So one, before we say goodbye for this time, I think we would like to just give you the prices so you can see what the quality of a wine are without really breaking the bank. And I hope, Emma, you have them in a little finger.
So the Nino Franco Rustico Prosecco is $25.99. The Pagato is $27.99. The Vira Rosso is $17.99. And
I think maybe that's $18.99 or something like that.
$18.99. And then the Colombini Rosso del Montalcino is $28.99. So everything we enjoyed today is under $30, and you see the quality. These people are artisans, they're farmers, they are paying attention to their land, their impact on the environment, and the resulting wines really speak for themselves.
Yeah, and I think that's also what differentiates them, obviously, from the big boys, but also differentiate them from a lot of wineries, especially in California, where in the old days, in the 80s mostly, you know, a lot of business people, that's what they did. They went and purchased wineries, and they not farmers. They're totally in a different business. They might be in finance, banking. They just wanted to have wineries. So it's very different that somebody that you know, dirties their fingers and goes to the land and then picks the grapes than somebody that just manages or even have somebody to manage it for them. So I think we appreciate that very much. And so it goes for the, maybe Moliterno, that's a little bit larger company, but all the Buffalo and especially the goat cheese from Lady Farm, these are artisanal people that really care about the land, like Emma said. And we are for it. So thank you so very much. I hope you enjoyed it. And we're gonna plan another one, I think, in 2 weeks. Sarah?
What's the date? What's the date? Sarah, what's the date?
We're gonna do it on, hold on 1 second, I can.
What's wrong
We're
next week?
We're gonna work our calendar around that.
Okay, good.
We'll
Thank
have,
you so much, Claudia. It's fabulous.
Really good.
Thank you very much. So good to
And
see you.
the cheeses were unbelievable. They were, oh my gosh. So good.
Thoroughly enjoyable. Cheers to you.
Really.
Oh,
And the
cheers. Thank
wines
you.
were fabulous too. Y'all do such a great job. We love Bricks, and thank you so much for doing this with Great Harbor Yacht Club. We really do appreciate your stepping up to the plate.
And the
Thank
culture
I
of
have
our
to tell
own
you.
homes. It's great.
I have to tell you that Sarah was so organized. It was really
I
a
know.
pleasure. Like so
She is
organized.
awesome. She is the best.
Yeah.
We
I
love
mean,
Sarah.
Well, this was fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
so we will,
Bravo.
everybody.
Thank you.
Ciao.
we will announce the other one with an email. It'll probably be on the 23rd or sometime around there. But Claudia and I will I'll get the list of wines from her, and then we will collaborate and get that out to everybody and send an email to you at this time. Invite your friends.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank
Sarah.
you, Sarah.
Thank
All
you
right.
for organizing.
Thank you, Sarah.
Ciao. Thank you, McDonald's.
Thank you.
All right, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Ciao.
Thank
Nice.
you.